Conference, Simon Darvill, National Chair of Young Labour, moving Composite 8 on the refugee crisis. This summer, the whole country has been moved by the images on news reports of men, women and children in refugee camps in Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan and Calais, families attempting to cross seas in inflatable boats, to cross borders by train and by foot. Most of us can't even begin to imagine having to flee our home, job, friends and wider family in the fear of the bloodshed of President Assad's regime and the barbarism of the so-called Islamic State. But the British people have reached out to those seeking refuge from war-torn countries this summer. Churches, charities, trade unions and thousands of ordinary people across our country have heard the pleas of the refugees and offered a help of hand. People have organised clothing collections, charitable appeals and even offered their own homes to help those in need. But the ordinary person in the street can only offer so much. The real action on this issue needs to come from our politicians. In the Labour Party, we are proud internationalists, and we never forget the key values of our movement: solidarity, social justice, and compassion for those less fortunate than us. Jeremy Corbyn didn't forget those values when he decided that his first act as Labour leader would be to march alongside the thousands of people calling on Britain to do more to respond to this humanitarian crisis. Because this is a humanitarian crisis, and Britain should do and can do so much more. But let's contrast the actions of British people and our new leader with that of the British Prime Minister. I'm not someone who often quotes Lord Ashcroft, but when I was reading his assessment of David Cameron in the serialisation of his latest book, one quote stood out at me. On working with David Cameron, he says, "His laissez-faire approach can create the impression that he is insufficiently concerned by results, and more than once he's appeared so relaxed that he has only stirred to avert disaster at the last minute." And isn't that the case this summer conference? Yes, our Prime Minister of our country is so chillaxed that it took a nation's outcry at seeing the photo of a washed-up body of a toddler on a beach in Turkey to finally spur him into action. It took the front pages of our newspapers to make David Cameron realise that if he didn't do something, he would find himself on the wrong side of history. Conference is an absolute disgrace. The photos of Island Kurdi hit home to each person who saw them because he could have been our child, our brother, our nephew. But he found himself fleeing guns, bombs, persecution, not of his own choosing, but because of the place he was born. Nearly half of the Syrian population are today no longer living where they were when civil war broke out. 7.5 million people are eternally displaced. 4 million have fled the country. Many more are fleeing war, rape and poverty in Africa and in other humanitarian disasters in the surrounding areas. People dying on their way to Europe aren't swarms, queue jumpers or illegals. They are human beings like you and I, and they deserve a humane response. As the Holy Father said at the US Congress last week, "Do unto others as you had them do unto you." The message from the youth wing of the Labour Party, the Association of Labour Councillors and the CLPs who put forward this motion is crystal clear. Britain must remember its proud tradition of aiding and sheltering those in need of protection. Britain must work with our European partners to help alleviate the suffering and the degrading treatment of families like Ireland's who are seeking refuge from war-torn regions. Britain must extend its pledge to provide a safe haven for much more than just 20,000 refugees over the next 5 years. And that means families from the camps in the Middle East, as well as those who've managed to already get to Europe. This is an issue that unites our movement, and I know that this Composite, with the support of every member of our party and every trade unionist who share in Young Labour's view, that Britain has a moral duty, not just to walk past on the other side of the street, but to offer a helping hand to those in need. Conference, please support Composite 8.